Hi friends, just wanted to take a minute and give you sort of a quick overview of the sewing functions on your Luminaire. If you've recently bought a new Luminaire and maybe haven't had a lot of time to stitch on it yet, just wanted to give you a quick overview of what this machine can do. So when we're on our home screen, which we can always get to wherever we are in the Luminaire by just pushing the little house in the upper right corner, that takes us to this home screen. You'll see we have options. We have sewing, which is what we're going to look at today. And once we choose sewing, it's going to take us to this main screen where we have our utility stitches and our character decorative stitches. Okay, let's look at our utility stitches first. There's actually 7 categories of utility stitches. Each of these here at the top are different categories of stitches. So we have our basic utility stitches as category number 1, and then you'll see you can scroll up and down through the stitches to see all those that are in category 1. We have just our straight stitches, we have our zigzag stitches, and you'll notice whenever you choose a stitch, it's going to be displayed here in your stitch display area. It will also tell us which foot it recommends for the zigzag. It recommends the J foot, which is sort of a good foot universally to use, but if the machine needs a different foot, it'll tell you right here. When you're displaying your stitches in this area, you can change the color of the stitches, so blue, red, black, yellow. And here at the beneath that display area, we've got some options. We've got the auto tie-off option. If that is in blue, then the stitches are going to tie off at the beginning of our stitching. And if we choose the button over here to tell it that we're ending, it will also tie off at the end of our stitches. So that's the little circle button here on the front of our machine. In addition to the tie off button, we also have the scissors. If we turn that on and make it blue, it will cut our thread for us when we stop stitching. So that's kind of handy. The next one says, hey, when we stop stitching, do we want the needle to be up or down? So we can change our choices there. If we want the needle to be down, perhaps for pivoting, we can tell the machine, yeah, I want the needle to be down and I want the foot to go up so that I can easily pivot. So you have some choices there. At the bottom of your screen here, for any of our sewing stitches, we'll have width, length, left-right shift, and tension, and they're always very handy right there at the bottom. For a zigzag stitch, I can change the width. Notice how it's changing here right on my screen, giving me an accurate display of how that would stitch out. Or I can change the length. I can make it much tighter, almost a satin there. Could go all the way to a satin, or make it much longer, and that really gives me a very visual display of what I'm doing with my stitch. The next one over is our left-right shift. Now if I've got my stitch already set as wide as it can go, I don't have any room to shift left or right. You'll see it just stays at 0. But if I make that stitch less wide, watch what happens. Let's make it a little shorter too, so it looks more like a zigzag again. Now watch this as I push left-right shift. My needle and the whole line of stitching is going to move to the left and to the right. Okay? So that's pretty easy. And the final choice here is our tension. The default setting is 4. If I'm sewing on something very thick or something very fine, I might want to change my tension. Generally, the Luminaire does a real good job of regulating that for me, and I don't generally need to change my tension, but it's right there if you do need to. Now we've changed a lot of settings here. If these are settings that I want to use again, maybe I'm working on a project and I want that same stitch later on, I can just save it to my memory, okay? And then I could go back and retrieve it from my memory when I get ready. And it's going to tell me right here what it is, and it's going to give me all the settings, okay? If I have changed my settings while I've been playing with them and I want to reset them, there's a couple things I can do. You'll notice here on the tension, the default setting is on a black background with white numbers. That tells me that's the default. So I can go look for that setting. There it was, 0, 0 under left-right shift. Or I can just put the reset button and it will change all my settings back to their default. Okay, so don't have to worry. You can play, you can touch buttons. You're not going to mess anything up. You really can play without worrying at all about it. Let's look at some of these other categories. Category 2 gives me even more utility stitches, as does category 3. Some of these are kind of cute. I like that one. Just a whole variety. Remember, again, we can change the colors here. So if you're new to your machine, go through, stitch some of these out. Now do pay attention. This one wants your foot number in, okay, for that decorative stitch. So J, N, it'll tell you what it needs. As we go through, we've got our buttonholes here. So many different buttonholes. By the way, we'll look at this again later, but the buttonhole feature on the Luminaire is amazing. We put the button in the buttonhole attachment, and it takes a picture of the button and gauges how big the buttonhole needs to be for us. So can't be any easier than that, really. We've also got multi-directional stitches here. This is category 5 if you're keeping up. We've got straight stitches that can go forward or backward. They can go up and to the left at a 45-degree angle or up to the right at a 45-degree angle. We can also go down to the left at a 45-degree angle or down to the right. Notice it's showing here right on the screen what that's going to do. See, I don't have to wonder what that'll look like. It shows you. I can also go left or right with my stitches. In addition to the straight stitches, I've got zigzag stitches that can go left, right, forwards, or backwards. And when I would use the multi-directional stitches is if I want to sew where I can't move the fabric perhaps, and so I need the machine to do the work. If I was sewing up a patch on a sleeve or on a pant leg, and I can use my free arm to sew those tubes, but I can't really move them and rotate them on my machine, so this takes care of that for me. Really, really cool features. Something else I wanted to show you. Let's go back to the main screen here. Now with a zigzag stitch, let's see, a little longer, kind of more interesting, maybe make it a little wider. Okay, now I can see here on the screen what that's going to look like. And another thing I can do, did I go too fast there? This button right up here in the top left of the screen, if I push that, it actually gives me a screen where I can see more of that stitch. I can zoom into that stitch as well and see it displayed larger. And if this was a line of stitches, which we'll get to in a minute, that extended left and right beyond what I could see, I could scroll left and right, up and down through a combination of stitches. So that's kind of a handy. I can also change the color while I'm in there. But where this is really cool is when I can hit my projected stitches. Okay, so I hit that projector button, which is the cone. Okay, now if I come over here, there you go. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. It's projecting an image right onto my fabric here, showing me the stitch right on the fabric. That's exactly where it'll sew out. I have my stylus, and on this end of the stylus, if you notice, it's got a button. If I push that, it lights up. When I am using my projector and have this showing on my fabric, if I come to this first section where it has a plus and minus, that'll change the width of my stitch, and I can make it go bigger or smaller, so more or less wide. It's changing it right on my fabric there. Let's go back to wide again. I can also, so each time I want to change the setting, I just touch that little button right where, my finger's probably in the way for you, right, just like a pencil. I'm going to hold it and I'm going to hit the button so that light lights up and it will change my stitches. I can change the length now, same way, just touch the plus or the minus. And you hopefully can see that the stitches are getting longer and shorter. I can also change the needle position. Don't know if you can see that. The needle is moving and so are the projected stitches. Okay, so that's kind of cool. In a minute we'll see something that's even more fun when we get to the decorative stitches. But so that's one of the cool features on your machine. Another option we have here, in addition to the projector, is to use guidelines. So when we touch this button to the right of the cone, which was our projector, the button to the right turns our guideline on and off. So if we touch that, see this window comes up and it says guideline on or off. Right now it's off, but I'm going to turn it on. Okay. I can turn on a main guideline, which will line up with my needle, but I can change where exactly it lines up if I need it to. I can change whether I want the line to be long, medium, or short. Usually I leave it long, but if you were maybe doing a circle or something where the long line was distracting, you can make it shorter. You can also change the color. It can be green or white or red, whatever you need it to be to show up on your fabric is the idea there. The other tab here is your sub tab. So I can choose a sub line. In addition to my main laser line now, I've got a sub line which will be to the right of that first line, and that's what I would line up with the edge of my fabric. So the main line will be with my needle, the sub line will be on the edge of my fabric. I can change how far that is from my needle. Want a perfect 1/4 inch? There it is, 6.35 millimeters. Makes a perfect 1/4 inch. It will change your life if you're a quilter. it's fabulous. We also can put a grid on the fabric, and I can change the size of the grid. I can go bigger, a lot bigger. And I would use this grid if I was trying to line up with another line of stitches on my fabric or with some feature on my fabric. Maybe I want it to be parallel with a pocket or parallel with a design on the fabric itself. I can use these grid lines, to make those things happen. I can also use an angled line here, and I can change the angle of the line 90 degrees, 60 degrees, 45 degrees. Okay. When would I use that? Probably if I was doing a star for quilting. It lets me line up the edges of my fabric on the outside lines, and then I'll know exactly where to start sewing on the inside line. So it really does help you if you've ever done a star that ends up being a little too full in the middle. This will solve that problem for you. It's really not a bad thing at all. And again, we can change the seam allowance there. It knows we're talking about seam allowance. We can change our seam allowance for a perfect 1/4 inch. So that's great. If I want, I can turn that second line off and just have my main line, which I might do if I was stitching in the ditch, for instance. Don't need to know where the edge of the fabric is. I just want to make sure that I stay right in my seam. Okay, the next area I want to look at with you is the decorative stitches. This is really my favorite part of the sewing menu. It's going to tell us when I touch that, okay, to cancel the current stitch selection, I'm going to say yep. Okay, now we're on our decorative stitch screen, and you'll notice again across the top we have categories of stitches. This time we've got a lot of categories, so it goes from category 6 through 15. Then we have the Disney category, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different alphabetical fonts, as well as our little pocket there. And for Brother, that's where we store things that we want to use later. So that's where our saved stitches would be, in the pocket. But let's go back over here and look at some of these categories. They've given us just tons and tons of stitches, and they're really pretty nice. Now these are really cute. Okay, all different kinds. Again, if I touch a stitch, it'll show here in my display area, which is nice. And there's so many. Look, see, you can see over here on the scroll bar how many there are left to go. Kind of gives you an idea of where you're at as a reference. You can also just scroll through with your finger to see what you want to see. And again, if you want to change stitches, just hit the next stitch and it will put the new stitch pattern on there for you. Okay, so really a pretty good variety of stitches there. Look at that, even little flags. Gosh, that's cute. Each of these categories you should go through and touch and explore, pick different ones, see which ones you like. There's so much to like here, just beautiful stitches. You could use these for top stitching with clothing, with handbags, just so many things you can't even think of. They have seasonal stitches, they have flower stitches, leaves, all kinds of things. My favorite category so far, I think, although there's so much to like, is probably category number 8. See there, it has the little butterfly. They've put together some alphabetic combinations there for us, but then as you go down, look at these, how cute they are. Look, there's a birthday cake with musical notes. cupcakes and ice cream. Look, here's for Easter, we've got Easter eggs and bunny rabbits. Really cute Christmas ornaments. Got a Christmas package and candy canes. So don't worry, there's absolutely nothing you can hurt by just going through and pushing these buttons. So if you're getting used to your machine, please go through and check out all the character decorative stitches. Can't hurt a thing. You're not even stitching yet, you're just looking at this point. And they are so cute. Look at the choo-choo train. Okay, so enough. I love these stitches. They're really, really a lot of fun. As we come across here, we see we've got some satin stitches. Look at that. That's cute with the candle wicking look. Those are cute. This whole category is candle wicking in different configurations. The next one over is satin stitches. And that's just really nice, isn't it? Okay. So we have a lot of different things here. And again, make sure you scroll down through. There's so much here. 13, these make some really nice scallopy looks. But so many different choices. 14 is cross stitch. That's sweet little hearts. All kinds of patterns here. Okay, we get to 15. These are decorative utility stitches. There we've got our blanket stitch if you're doing applique. With any of these now, if we want to change that, so yeah, there's my blanket stitch, but maybe for some reason I need it to stitch on the other side. What am I to do? If you go up here in the upper right corner, see right here with the pencil, touch that. That gives us all our editing icons. So I can take that set of stitches and flip it. And now the teeth, the little part that sticks out, is going to stitch to the other side. So just as easy as that. This one doesn't have a vertical flip because it's the same either way, but if I find a different stitch, let's see. Let's go find something that's a little different. There's my cars, they're going up. If I touch my editing and I want to flip that vertically, now they're driving down. Okay, so I can change the orientation of the stitches. The first button here is if I want to do free motion. Just by touching that, it'll put my feed dogs down. It'll tell me, hey, you need to use the O foot if you're going to do free motion. And when I'm done with that, I can just hit it again. Boom, I'm ready to keep stitching. I can touch this button to tell it, hey, I want to stitch just one car. I don't want to do a whole line of cars, just one. And if I go to stitch that out, that's all it'll do. It's going to stitch my one and then quit. But I usually want to stitch a string. But check this out. Maybe I want to combine cars. And let's see, what else do we, with bumblebees. I don't know why, but I could hit the plus sign here. I've got my cars going. I can find, where did I just see them? I can put a car and then a bumblebee and then maybe another car. Maybe two bumblebees. I can just keep hitting plus as many times as I want to make different combinations of stitches. Now, if I decide, oh golly, I didn't want to have that car there, I can use these up and down arrows while I'm in the combination mode and go to that car. Again, go to my editing buttons here and just hit delete. And whichever one had been highlighted, that's what will be deleted. So I deleted a B, there goes another B, okay? So I don't have to delete a whole string of stitches to go back and make one change. I can just use my up and down buttons to go to it. On the other hand, if I want to have this combination of stitches as one unit so that I can change them all at one time, maybe I want to flip this whole line of stitches. Boom. If I hit this grouping button and then hit the flip button, it's going to flip the whole thing. If I ungroup it, just the one that's selected will be flipped. So now I can have alternating B's. Isn't that cute? So really a lot that I can do there. A lot of fun. If I want to get out of the combination mode, I just touch the plus sign. Now if I choose a new stitch, it's going to replace what I had there instead of adding to it. Okay. Another really cute thing I want to show you though, with this, I'm not limited to just adding them in a straight line. I like this particularly when I go to category 13. let's say I have these stitches and I want to make a scalloped pattern on my pillowcase cuff. So if I hit the combination mode and stitch one of these stitches and then say, hey, let's go up, and then add another one and go up again, add another one. You see how we're making a pattern that's angled? I can go up as many times as I want, and I can come back down again by hitting these arrows at the bottom. I can make a pattern that's a little more interesting than just straight, okay? Now it's getting to be a pretty long pattern there. I can't see the whole thing anymore. So remember, if I want to go look at the whole pattern, if I touch this button in the upper left-hand corner, it's going to give me the view of the whole pattern, and I can scroll up and down through it by hitting these arrows, okay? I can also zoom in on the stitches to get a closer look and see how they're coming together. Okay, so that's kind of neat. Again, like we saw earlier, I still have my guideline on, but if I want to turn my guideline off and instead go to my projector, I love doing this with the character stitches because I can see just how cute they are. Let's go on down here and grab some we haven't seen. Oh, look at these. So cute. So these, let me get out of combi mode. Okay. There we go. So these are really cute, and I can flip them if I want, so they're going the right way. So look, I've got a dress mannequin and a hat, really cute. I also have some sewing notions there. I've got my thimble, my sewing machine, my thread, balloons. But the cool thing is I can watch these be displayed right on my fabric. So let's check that out. As I go through, here we go. Getting the hang of this a little better now. There we go. Okay. So as I go through, let's change that maybe to a red. See, this fabric doesn't show up really well. With my red pattern here, can you see what we're displaying? If I use my pen and touch the button here, I can go Audition Stitches. Now look, I've got my pennants, I've got balloons, I've got stars. I can just keep flipping through those. There's my birthday cake again. I think that birthday cake's awful cute. I can go until I get one I like just by touching this button on my pen. Every time I touch it, it's going to flip through another stitch. Hey, we're coming up on Valentine's Day. There's a little cupid with hearts. So if I choose Set, now that is going to be the stitches that I stitch when I start sewing. And if we look over here, we can see it's also changed it on my screen. So now you can see the cupids here displayed on the screen. They're also displayed over here on my fabric. So very neat. If I made a combination of stitches I wanted to save, or if I had the cupids and I had changed maybe the width, the length, and I got them just the way I want to use them, maybe multiple times in a project, I can get them just the way I want and then hit memory. Again, I can save it either to a USB or to my machine. And when I get ready to go use it again later, it'll be there waiting for me. So that's kind of nice. Okay, so that's sort of a quick, there's lots of other features we can talk about in sewing, but that's enough to get you started. So what I'd like you to do is first just spend some time scrolling through your utility and your decorative stitches, and then pick one and go ahead and sew it out. Try sewing it out by turning on your guideline and just turn it on there. Turn on your main line so it lines up with your needle. Then turn on your subline, maybe at 1/4 of an inch. Run that right along the edge of your fabric. Okay? And try stitching out a line of stitches. The first one I would do is your utility stitches, okay? Because the decorative stitches, it takes a little practice getting used to, and that's because the machine is going to move your fabric left and right to make those great, big, beautiful decorative stitches. And it takes a little practice getting used to letting the machine have control over that and yet still keep your line of stitches straight. One thing that can help you when you're doing decorative stitches, if you keep your guideline straight with the edge of your fabric, parallel with the edge of your fabric. Not right on your edge because it's going to have to move left and right. But if it's parallel with the edge of your fabric, then your line of stitches are going to be parallel with the edge of your fabric too. So that's kind of a nice use of your guideline when you're getting used to using those character stitches. But first, why don't you choose category number 1 under utility stitches, stitch number 102. Try putting on your tie off and your cutting features. Sew a line of stitches. And when you get ready to stop, push that round button on the front of your machine there and tell it while you're still sewing that you want it to stop, tie off your thread, and go ahead and cut the thread for you and see how that feels. When you get kind of comfortable doing maybe some straight stitches, some zigzag stitches, playing around with different lengths and widths, then go on to your character decorative stitches and just stitch some out. They're so cute. I think you'll get carried away with this. I know I do. I really love stitching these things out. There we go. You'll see them on your screen. You can project them onto your fabric. Stitch them. Get used to that feel of stitching, okay? So that's your first assignment. Go ahead and play around with your sewing features a little bit and get used to those. And the next thing we'll do is look at the different embroidery features, okay? Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.